Yo, what's going on, people? Welcome back to the channel. Tomorrow, the EU RMR A begins. Kind of 3 days of non-stop action. Best of ones for the most part. Best of threes for elimination and promotion games. It's all starting to get quite real, quite exciting for the first Counter-Strike 2 major. Now, it starts with the EU RMR A for a few days, then followed by EU RMR B for a few days, and the LCQ after that. In this video, I'm just going to be going through the RMRA, my fantasy, my overall thoughts, and I'm going to be going on the Majors IM, the kind of the pick'em sort of thing that we all sort of use along the way to predict matchups and all the stuff. So I'm going to be going through who I think is going to make it through in a relatively kind of whirlwind action. So let's, without further ado, get into all the action. Let's take a look at the event itself. Here we go. As is, 16 teams here, 8 make it through to the next stage, of course, as you can see here. The top 8 make it through to the major. Then the remaining 3 after that make it into that LCQ. And of course, there'll be 3 from RMRA, 3 from RMRB. Only 1 team out of that LCQ are going to make it through. So it's pretty exciting. It goes without saying. Some pretty decent teams playing. You've got top rated team in the world currently at right now in that of FaZe. You've also got the lowest rated team being previous Legends ITB, right? So there's a lot to talk about coming in towards this one. I thought what I probably could do is start off by going through the Majors.im sort of prediction sort of thing. So for those of you who don't really know how this works, Majors.im, it's a website kind of helps you predict games, especially in these RMRs where there's, a million different things happening at once. There's multiple games happening at once. And because of the best of ones, they're very quick. I thought probably the best way to do is go through these round by round, and you can kind of see where teams will sort of fall into place, so to say. So we'll start off with our round number 1. FaZe taking on 9 Pandas. I think that one's pretty much a bit of a lock. I don't think I need to go into too much detail about that one just yet. 9 Pandas, is good to see them here. They've obviously had a very decent run recently. But their chances are definitely on the slimmer side. But we'll come back to both of those two teams when they have a little bit more even game. Same thing with VP Saw here. I'm going to lock in VP every day of the week. Same thing with Na'Vi Koi, right? And this is kind of how the early stage is going to be. A lot of these teams are heavy favorites because it's all down to seeding, right? Top seed versus bottom seed and that kind of vibe. Well, it's not actually top seed versus bottom seed. It's 1 versus 9, but then as you can see kind of along here, it's like it goes in a very weird way where it's bottom seed versus out of the 16 teams. So 1 versus 9, 8 versus 16. It's a little bit cursed. I don't really like it personally, but it's kind of what Valve have decided to go for it. Rather than being 1 versus 16, which has been how most tournaments have done seeding, this one's a little bit different. I think it's meant to give more of those kind of tier 2 teams a chance. And yeah, fair enough. G2 taking ITB. I think G2 shouldn't have any problems. Now, while this game on paper, in terms of name value, maybe looks quite close in Eternal Fire and Nip, I don't think Eternal Fire will struggle. I think off the back of Kato, well, they didn't make it extremely far. I think there was really good signs coming out from Eternal Fire. Wakadia looks really solid. When Nip are just so rough around the edges. I don't know if I rate Alex that highly as an IGL or just as a player, fundamentally speaking. I think this team, NRP might not make it through. I think there's actually genuinely a conversation to be had there. And we'll probably see as well. I haven't pre-done this yet. I actually did already kind of record this video once with Paladin. However, audio corrupted. OBS had a real nightmare. So I thought I'd just do a quick one. We're going to regroup for video B. So you'll see that then. Amcal Enterprise. Now, Amcal are my absolute dark horse. They're a lock for me in this game. They are my dark horse coming in towards the tournament. I genuinely think Amcal can make it through to the major. And that's no joke. I'd love to see this team make it through. They have been putting up some serious numbers. I don't think they're going to struggle against a team like Enterprise. So for me, they feel like a lock. BetBoom Fnatic, or BetBoom are the higher seed. I'm actually going to go Fnatic here. I think BetBoom on a real downtrend, and it's not looking pretty. This team have been looking real rough around the edges. The style of Counter-Strike they're playing is not going well. I think Fnatic actually have a very decent chance. Well, we haven't seen them play in a while, and a serious while at that. I really do think there's a lot to like about Fnatic on paper. I think QB is very solid as a rifler. I think Body's also very solid as well. And I think really, honestly, Matthews can be a star if he finds that form. So for me, I'm going to go Fnatic as my lock in here. In the final game, I don't think Falcons will struggle. I like 3D Max. We'll probably come to them a little bit later, but I don't think they'll struggle. Now, this is where things start to get a little bit more interesting. This is where some of these games become a little bit closer. FaZe versus Falcons, whilst number 1 versus number 16 in the seeding, I think it's a lot closer of a game. FaZe, I still think, the shoe in here. They're a team who've been at near enough every single final for the last, run of the few tournaments. They're still #1 level category. Yes, they got battered by Spirit, but I still think FaZe are up there. I don't think they'll struggle. I know there's all the arguments to be made about, FaZe don't really try until they need to. They don't turn it on until kind of the back's against the wall. That's been the narrative for a while. I think they're losing that narrative now. We've seen this FaZe side look so solid for such a long time. Frozen has really elevated this team in a massive way. I think there'll be a lock over Falcons. I still think there's question marks about Falcons. I did like what I saw at Kato. I'm going to give him the credit there. I definitely think there's a couple of reservations about Boris's firepower and consistency of that firepower. But overall, that team is solid, and they are actually a very decent team. But I think FaZe, in a best of one, should have their number. I think Falcons, slightly limited map pool, might come back to bite them throughout this tournament. But we'll see. FaZe versus VP versus Fnatic, may I say. VP should take that. I know we can talk about VP not looking that great at Kato, or Kato play-ins, I guess, for that matter. But I think it was a hiccup. I think the same way when we go to EUB for Astralis, I think it was a hiccup, right? I don't think this is what VP are all about. I still think VP are an incredible team. I think Flit and Fame look still as solid as ever. I think Norbert is revitalized. I don't know what the fuck has happened, but Norbert is now a real stud of a rifler. He's solid, man. He's seriously solid. So, fair play. I really do like what I've been seeing coming out from him. Na'Vi Amcal, I love this game. In a best of one, this is a banger. Whoever's casting this is really in for a treat. I think Na'Vi will take it. I think Wonderful looks really good at the moment. But we'll come into it a little bit later with Amcal. This team is sick. I'm a big fan of Amcal and what they've been doing recently. And honestly, I think they actually have a very decent chance in towards the RMR and maybe in towards the Major, which we'll come to in the tail end just a little bit further. G2 Eternal Fire, I think it's actually, again, another relatively close game there, but I don't think Eternal Fire have the consistency yet. And even when you question, Hunter's been looking pretty rough, just the raw firepower of something like Nico and SE in a best of one should be fine. I want to say Eternal Fire just because I've been loving what I'm seeing from Warcadia. And actually Majors allowed him to be quite free in terms of his playstyle, but I'm still sticking with G2 here. I think Manesi and Nico, I know for them, they're going to be quite annoyed about recent performances, and especially having Hunter's got a point to prove as well. So I really think they're going to come out fighting, or hope, right? That is the plan. BetBoom Eternal Enterprise, I say Eternal Enterprise. There we go. I think BetBoom will take this one. BetBoom have looked really rough, but Enterprise, for me, who's a big follower of Tier 2, you've got 2 players in this team that I didn't even know before looking into this new look Enterprise team. I'm not a huge fan of them. I really aren't. I'm not. I think they're probably one of the most likely teams to go 0-3, especially from EUA. Even though BetBoom have been downtrending, I don't think they've gone that down. Karen still got the firepower. Nafli still calls a pretty decent game, all things considered. And even their weakest player, in my opinion, of Danitz, I think is still better than the majority of Enterprise. So I'm going to lock in BetBoom here. Over towards 3D Max NIP. This game again feels considerably closer than it probably should be, but there is a bit of a trend with 3D Max on LAN looking a little shaky, a little rough around the edges. Individuals like Maka, for example. It's been a long time since we've seen them play at a good level consistently. So I actually want to go NIP here. I think just the raw firepower of somebody like Config, or if Headtrick finds that form, man, he could be, a bit of an animal throughout this qualifier. Granted, they are, in my opinion, in this 0-1 stage here, but I don't think they'll struggle that much. I do actually really rate the 3D Max team, but it is kind of at the moment French Counter-Strike a little bit and thinking like this is a team that do struggle a bit on LAN because that's been the story for a long time. And I'd love for them to change that narrative, but right now I don't have any proof in the pudding to say that. Then we go to 9 Pandas at Into the Breach. This one's actually relatively tough because you got Into the Breach who seem like they found a bit of form recently, but 9 Pandas were actually pretty good at the end of the year on LAN as well. The Parry Please LAN, they ended up winning it 3-0 against Eternal Fire actually in that best of 5, which was huge. I mean, shot them up the rankings. And then throughout the qualifier, they looked pretty good as well. Part of me wants to say 9 Pandas here, in all honesty. As much as I want to kind of sit here and talk about Into the Breach, I think they're such a wild card. I know everyone said this last time with Into the Breach, and I want to support them. I mean, I've got the jersey. You can't even really see it, but it's just behind me. 9 Pandas do look okay. I think they can actually be scary in best of ones. So I'm going to go 9 Pandas here. And then Movistar, Koi, and Saw is a pretty interesting game. These two sides actually played in the Blast Iberia quals that I did the other day. And Saw ended up being the team who won out the quals in the end overall. But they were made to work for it a little bit in the group, so I don't think they expected that at all. I'm going to go Saw here. I think basically Saw are the premium side in this region, where Movistar, Koi, I think, are remnants of, teams of old, players of old. A lot of these guys are aged now on this Movistar, Koi side. And while I still think they're very solid, and it's great to see two, different teams from the Iberian region here. From the recent tournament I saw of the Iberian kind of qualifier, this Saw side when they step up, do look really good. I think Ujerks and Story are very solid. I think Irish Dosh as an anchor can be very, very good on his day as well. So for me, I think, we're relying on the individuals here. And I think, while you can look at people like Just, or you can, talk about conversations like Stadodo, I still want to lock in Saw here for me. I really do like what I've seen out of the side, generally speaking. So yeah, I'm going to go with them. FaZe taking on G2. I'm going to go FaZe. There is a conversation to be had here. But I think while G2... I don't think, against Eternal Fire that they would struggle that much, but against FaZe, I think they really would. Hunter's still not look the same. Nexa was meant to come in and give Hunter more room, but he has just got worse in every way. It's actually a problematic kind of issue now for this team, where Hunter is not a number 13 rifler in the world. He is really, really struggling. He is barely putting up a 1 rating. It's fundamentally not good enough, and I think that is, for me, a real problem. Looking at this team. So I think FaZe should go 3-0 here. And then you got VP Na'Vi. Now, I want to say VP here, but the recent performances were obviously quite rough. And Na'Vi seem upward trending at the moment. So this was actually relatively difficult. It's kind of the real question mark for me talks about, do we see VP, who didn't do great at Kato and have had a lot of time to reflect, have they worked on those issues, and are they going to come in with all this prep, or is it more about working on themselves? It's a weird thing, but we know what VP were like last RMR. I was there. It was a weird time being around that team. So I think part of me wants to go Na'Vi there just for maybe the recent results. I guess recency bias is playing a big part there, but VP didn't look amazing at Kato, as we all saw. And part of me wants to kind of just bank off that because it feels like the smarter play right now. We'll see. Eternal Fire, Bet Boom. I'm going to go Eternal Fire. Bet Boom downtrending, as we already mentioned. And I do like what we've seen out of Eternal Fire. I think in that matchup, a lot of the things that Bet Boom would try to use in their advantage just don't work for them. And one of the maps that they do like are Inferno. I don't think Eternal Fire will let through in a best of one. So I think all things the map pool should favor Eternal Fire there. And I think that's what they're going to then work quite well. Then we go on towards NIP taking on Fnatic. And I'm going to go Nip it. I don't mind Fnatic as a team, but I think, if this game gets scrappy or kind of puggy, just the individuals, bar the IGL, no offense to Alex, I don't rate him that highly, bar the IGL are better onto NIP. That's where I'm going to go towards them. Then we've got Amcal Falcons. Now, in my head, I want to really put Falcons through, Amcal through, and I do think they'll make it through, but I think if they do, they might have to really work for it. They either make it through on the sense of the LCQ, or they make it through kind of like 3-2, for example, where I kind of forced to kind of really work for it. I do think Falcons will take that game. I think individual-wise, they're better, but I think, for example, Icy on Amcal, I think is one of the best young players in the world. If you check out my video that's coming out on Friday, I speak a lot more about Icy. It's a bold predictions video, and Icy is one of the players for exactly that reason. This is an incredible young AWPer, putting up monstrous numbers. Keep an eye out for him. I genuinely think he can pull off something quite special. I think some players are going to be made to work if they get a good map coming through. But it is an if, right? It is a big if they get a good map coming through. We'll see. Then we've got Nine Pandas Saw. I want to go Saw here. I haven't seen enough of Nine Pandas recently to love this team where I have for Saw. I think that's basically the only saving grace for me. I feel like I've got just maybe a little bit more to go off when it comes towards Saw. Caesars, he's pretty old these days. He's been around for a long, long time. Has he still got it at this kind of upper echelon of tier 1.5 to tier 1? I don't know. I don't know if he does. Well, at least for Saw, I've seen it recently that they do. And the same goes for Koi here. Enterprise, this new look roster. It's a gamble going for the new look roster. Obviously, it's worked that they've made it to the RMR, but whether they go any further, I think is a real big ask. we'll see, man. We'll see. I don't really rate Enterprise that highly. You know, like I said, two of the 5 players I don't even know, which I think says a lot for someone who follows and casts and watches so much tier 2. So they've really dug some, probably, maybe, you know, maybe this could be diamonds in the rough, and I just don't, and they're going to prove me wrong. And I hope they do, because that'd be a really cool story, but I think they're going to really work for it. And then in the final match here, I hate to do it, but I'm going to go 3D Max here. In the O2 game, I think 3D Max have a much better chance over Into the Breach. This Into the Breach team have looked bad for a while. You know, when they lost Volt and when they lost Cypher, this team is in a lot of trouble. They lost Thomas for a while, but obviously he's now back in the roster, but I don't know how highly I rate Bemis, and I don't know how highly I rate Masuta. I mean, you know, Masuta is arguably one of the worst players to ever wear a Vitality jersey. You know, I think this team could struggle. Again, I'd love them to prove me wrong, being from the UK, being a UK org, but my God, they're going to have to work for, you know, going to have to pull off a miracle run here, like they did last time, essentially. So it'd be sick if they can, but they end up finishing in the O3 category in my predictions here in the head-to-head. Then we go and jump into round 4. I think VP have got a chance over NIP, a much better chance. Even though both teams have looked a little rough recently, I think that one should be fine. Same for G2 Sword. I don't think it's too much of a conversation there. Eternal Fire Falcons is a conversation, and it definitely could swing either way, but I'm going to lean in favor of Falcons. Just on the back of Kato playoffs, I think just the fact that I even made it there was sick for them. I think it's really good to see this team do that. And I think they have more of a chance, in my opinion, of making it that far. Then we get to Amcal BetBoom. Now, this is a banger game. These are two sides who play quite similar play styles. They're quite puggy in their nature, super aggressive. But I genuinely think Amcal are an incredible dark horse team in this tournament. And I think they're going to go and beat BetBoom here. BetBoom are downward trending, like we've already said, but it's really, it is looking pretty problematic. They've not been good, neither on LAN nor online. You can give them the sort of caveat here and say, okay, well, at least they've got LAN experience, which, yeah, is fair enough. But Amcal will have LAN experience, you know, with this. And, you know, going forward, I think this team can be seriously scary. I think they really should sort of not be underestimated. You know, I feel like I'm putting my name in the line a little bit here, but I generally think Amcal actually can make it through the RMRs. This team is so good if they play the way they can. Icy's been sick. Forrester is one of the best anchors. If it wasn't for kind of geopolitical issues, I think when Sunday Young, SDY, was dropped from Na'Vi, Forrester was the best replacement they could have found to go in towards that team. And all the roles that SDY was playing, Forrester plays exactly the same on both CT and T side. He felt like the perfect replacement, obviously just bar kind of the nationality side of things. So it's, you know, unfortunate, I guess, for him. But, man, this Amcal team is sick. Nickelback's still calling a masterclass. Travis is putting up numbers we haven't seen him put up since, like, the start of one win. And then when you look at the rest of the team as well, Crad looks sick. And like I said, Icy, man. Icy is so damn good. So, yeah, for me, I think Amcal have got a great chance. And I think 3D Max have got a good chance against 9 Pandas. 9 Pandas still feel like a massive unknown quantity to me. Well, at least 3D Max, they've actually been kind of really tugging at the heels of some of these tier 1.5 teams for a while now. And I think now that they've got the organizational backing behind them, I think they actually can make a very solid run, in all fairness to them. Final game of Fnatic versus Koi. I'm going to go Fnatic. I think Fnatic's firepower actually should just win this game for them. Individuals like Matties and Body should be fine. We'll see, but they should be fine, I think, in that sort of a game. I think Koi, they might get exposed a little bit in terms of the map pool as well when it gets deeper in towards the LAN, you know, especially when we get to elimination best of 3s, like these 1-2 games or the 2-1 games. Either that's best of 3 territory there. That's where it gets a little bit funky fresh. Now, final round for me. Eternal Fire taking on 3D Max. I don't think it'll be that close. Even though it's a best of 3, I think Eternal Fire right now actually just looks so solid that they should be the team you bank on. It's unfortunate for 3D Max. It will mean they drop into like LCQ, but that kind of has been the story. We saw kind of what Falcons are like last RMR, where they just couldn't quite hack it. I think it's probably the same here, you know, making it to the LCQ. I guess what the Falcons kind of roster, French CS, you know what I'm talking about. In the other 2-2 game, NIP saw, I'm going to go nip it. I think this comes out to firepower for me more than anything else in terms of veto. At NIP, while they have been struggling, they're making all these claims that they're coming back for 2025, but I'm sure they've still got some onus of what they want to do in towards this year, right? And making it through the RMR and getting some sticker money is probably a good start. So Saw will then drop into the LCQ in the final game. Amcal Fnatic. We're locking in Amcal. We're saying Amcal are making it through. I've already put my money where my mouth is when it comes to Amcal. So that's who I'm going to lock in. So that's my teams making it through. FaZe and Na'Vi going 3-0. VP, Falcons, and G2 going 3-1. And then the 3-2 teams that make it through being Eternify, NIP, and Amcal. That means that Saw, Fnatic, and 3D Max drop into that LCQ. So that is going to be where we're locking things in there. Next thing we can do, of course, is look at fantasy of how this one's going to go. Now, I've already had a little play around with fantasy, and I'm going to talk you through who I'm going to go for and why. So we're going to start off with a big boy, Frozen. At the moment, one of the best riflers in the world, in my opinion, has been putting up some serious numbers, looks sick in game for FaZe, and I think is going to be given a lot of space in towards the team. That's what I want to see. I want to see Frozen given all the space, all the sort of room to work with that I'd expect of him. And in best of ones, I think they're going to rely on him quite a lot. And then alongside him, I'm going to go for another big boy. I'm going to go for NiKo, right? NiKo, just numbers-wise, in some of these best of ones, especially against some of these rough teams, you know, who are G2s on, Into the Breach, right? He should absolutely farm. There shouldn't be a problem, right? He should all day, every day be, you know, destroying teams like Into the Breach and not having kind of too much of an issue in my books. So for me, I'm going to lock him in. Alongside, actually, that, I'm also going to go Karrigan as well. Now, this is just like a very easy person to put onto IGL, give just those stats there. I'm not a huge fan of Fantasy, so I don't actually do it all that often, but this is me trying to really bank on the golds here to do a lot of the sort of the heavy lifting, we'll call it. And then, because I've already spoken so much about this team and about this player individually, my next player, maybe a little bit of a Rogo one, I'm going to go Icy. Icy from Amcal. He's going to be my AWPer in this team. This kid is sick. So sick. His pistols are crisp, and everything else around him is incredibly solid. So I'm going to lock in Icy here. And that unfortunately leaves me with not a lot of choices of where to see things off. So I've got Badge Me on Enterprise. I've got Nickelback on Amcal. Now, part of me wants to go Nickelback, but there is a reason why I'm not going to go Nickelback, and you'll see in a minute. Also got Roman here on Saw, or finally Alex on NIP. And I'm going to go Alex. And you'll see why when I get to the roles. This is going to be my team I'm locking in here. Frozen, NiKo, Karrigan, Icy, and Alex. We're going to lock this team in. I'll show you why. Give me a second. Let's go to the roles. So I've already kind of sort of gone through these a little bit. Now, there's a couple of different ways I could have gone with sort of this, but I'm actually going to lock him in as a support here. That's my plan, is put him as support. NiKo, what did I put him as? I put him as a multi-fragger. This felt like the better option of all these. I've already had a little play around, so I've kind of figured these out of what I want to do. Karrigan, the leader, right? IGL. This team should go 3-0 in my opinion. I think he just gets the points off that. Main AWPer, of course, for Icy. And to finish it off, this is why I've picked Alex. I'm going to go for Noob on the roll here. I think in terms of kind of the sort of the way NIP play at the moment and the way this team is set out, I think he probably should finish towards the bottom more or less, more often than not. And if he doesn't, it's actually a real issue that he doesn't. You know what I mean? So that's where I'm going to lock things. Icy as an AWPer is so sick. FaZe, you know, you've got Frozen playing a lot of these support roles, which I think should be really good for him. You know, what he can do off the back of someone like Rops would be really sick. IGL, our leader on Karrigan, just for those points as a squad. I think this team should go 3-0. So, you know, that means good points coming through for me. Multi-fragger for NiKo makes sense, doesn't it? Especially against a team like Into the Breach. I think he should be absolutely fine. Icy has been sick, man. Against Enterprise, I don't think he should have too much of a problem. And then, of course, Noob for Alex. You know, the boosters here, there's a lot of different ways you can go. I'm not a huge fan of boosters anyway, so I'll leave you guys to kind of go where you want. I have kind of pre-done this a little bit on the actual HLTV League of the boosters, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. But this is the team I'm going to lock in. And that will more or less summarize everything. We've gone through who I think is going to make it through, who I think is going to be the team to keep an eye on, and you know, maybe a dark horse like Amcal, but also more often, and the kind of the most important thing is what players, of course, are going to be popping off. This should be a sick RMR. I'm going to be back in a few days' time alongside Paladin to be looking at all of the things EU RMR be. So sit tight for that one. We'll probably go into a little bit more detail on kind of why we're going for our picks and who we're going for and all the rest. But for now, I hope you enjoyed it. It's been a pleasure sitting down and talking with you all. Make sure to subscribe, like, all of the rest. And for now, I'll see you soon.